Hey, everybody. Really excited to speak with Andres this week, who just broke into tech sales and a fully remote job, I might add. We're really excited for you. I know we'll get into some of the things you did that helped you break in. Maybe as a starting point, share a little bit about your background and what got you looking at tech sales in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and thanks for having me. So yeah, I guess I'll do kind of the overview. Basically, my professional career starts in about June 2020. I moved to New York to work at a small art startup, and I was the events director. So I managed musical and arts events. And then a year later, I graduated from Northwestern University with a bachelor's in philosophy. And from there, stayed in New York a bit longer. And then in November of that year, I moved to Pittsburgh to start a skill games company with my friend. And there I handled all the operations. So, I mean, account management, hiring, training, managed a warehouse, just tons of stuff. And yeah, that went well. But, we grew really quickly and I ended up facing some severe burnout. So I ended up moving back home, took a bit of a career break, figured some things out. And then in November of 2023, I started a residential cleaning company. And there, I kind of handled everything. So sales, marketing, account management, hiring, training, everything. And that went fine. We ended up generating about 5,000 revenue total, 1,000 MRR. So it wasn't too bad, but I did reach a point where I kind of had to decide if that was what I wanted to do for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. Turns out it wasn't. And so I started looking at other opportunities and I kind of started looking at sales sort of loosely, just exploring other careers. I mean, for this, at some point I had tried looking at like project management jobs just because that kind of aligned with like my operations background. But I had a really hard time finding a job. That's actually why I started the cleaning company because I couldn't find a job. And yeah, and then I just happened to see a higher levels video on YouTube, ended up in my recommended and, the pipeline happened and I ended up joining the course and yeah, here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love how many things you've tried already because I think I definitely want to probe into that further maybe later on in this conversation. Like there's so many people I see who have tried so many things like that. And then in a strange way, because of that, feel like they would struggle to break in because they have so many different experiences. I know we recently spoke to Mike as well, who similar story. But maybe on that note too, you have these different experiences, you start looking at tech sales as a whole. Like, what did you try on your own, if anything, and what ultimately led to you deciding to invest in higher levels?
Yeah, so actually, I didn't really even know what tech sales was. I kind of just, like I said, I just saw a video on YouTube of higher levels and I clicked on it and I like your guys' content a lot. It's very straightforward, just, in the midst of all this flashy stuff, it's really like very like valuable content. And so, I ended up watching some more. And there was one video of yours, Eric, where it kind of struck a note. You mentioned how people with an entrepreneurship background can, tend to do really well in textile space. And so, yeah, that just kind of caused me to probe deeper. And, at a later point, I did see you guys had a course. And so I kind of clicked on it and I was ready to see, $5,000, $10,000. I was like, I'm going to click on this and I'm probably not going to buy it. But then I saw it was, I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I think maybe 600. And I was like, this is so much value for such a good price. Why not? Why would I not just try it out? Um, because I'd been through that job search process before with the project management and it's a crazy time, I mean, I couldn't even get a recruiter to respond to me at that point. So I knew what was up. I knew it would be a very long and rigorous process if I did it on my own. And so, yeah, I got the course and didn't look back. So, yeah.
Nice. I love it. Obviously you crushed it. So hats off to you. I guess like when you were looking at the course, like was there anything specific that you were obviously like it was a pleasant surprise, which we love to hear as well. The pricing is kind of aligned. But was there a part of this that made you say, hey, this was just like so overwhelmingly, a no-brainer that I'm going to go ahead and invest in it, even though you weren't necessarily planning on it? Like, what was it about the course that made you say that, right? Like, was it coaching? Was it the material? Or like, was there a specific segment that drew you in more than the others, maybe?
Yeah. I hadn't I'm kind of familiar with some of the other ones like Course Careers, but I know how some of these courses work. I've never like investigated them thoroughly, but I'm somewhat familiar. I would say the biggest value add for me was like the weekly Q&A and just being able to speak with you guys all the time. I don't think that's something a lot of courses do, generally speaking, and that was a huge, value add from before I bought the course and even while in the course. I mean, that was it's invaluable, being able to speak with someone who is, they already know what they know about the thing you're trying to learn about. So I would say that, and the price, of course, like I said, I was expecting like $5,000 minimum, and it's obviously way less than that. So yeah, I would say those two things were really what kind of sealed the deal for me.
Nice. Eric, I guess we gotta raise our prices a little bit there. So no, I'm just kidding. No, I love it.
They can thank Andres. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just put Andres as the culprit. So no, that's cool, man. I guess now that you've been through the course too, maybe apart from like the live coaching, and even the price, of course, was there a specific part of the program from like a training perspective or content perspective where you felt like this was more valuable to me than others? Obviously, this is different from person to person. Some people need help with resume, other people need help with interviewing, with XYZ, with offer negotiation. Was there a specific part of the course that you felt like was more valuable to you?
Yeah. I mean, it might be kind of a cliche answer, but honestly, like every single part was like great. I mean, the resume was that, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a specific part, but honestly, you guys got everything right. So yeah, the resume section is really great. And the interview section is also really great. I would say that's something where I personally felt like I probably was going to struggle a bit. I don't consider myself a great interviewer. And you guys give like tons of help with that. So I would say that section as well was like really invaluable.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I know we worked on some of your answers and maybe tapping into an earlier thread too for someone on the outside looking in. Maybe they have different experiences, whether it's running their own business, they're coming from a different career altogether. I know you mentioned you've had quite a few experiences, maybe starting with kind of getting noticed, even getting interviews in the first place. Any advice to someone on the outside looking in of how to package what on the surface might not seem like directly applicable skills and actually get noticed for first round interviews and beyond?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like in relation to, your own personal brand or resume, I think one of the biggest points that hit home with me was just getting your numbers down. It's just, I mean, I think one thing I realized is like some people and even myself will tend to sort of like overthink the resume when in reality it's being looked at for maybe like 10 to 15 seconds. And also when I say resume, I'm also referring to like your LinkedIn. I think they're kind of the same.
No, I totally agree. I think a lot of people overthink it. Like you do have to put a little bit of effort into it up front. But from there, to your point, once you get your numbers, once you get other things in place, it's very easy to then take that and customize it for each job opportunity. I'm sure some of the things you did as well. Also on the outside looking in, not really having tech sales experience at all. Could you speak to some of the things you did in later stage interviews to stand out, or just general advice from going through multiple interviews that you had?
Yeah. So I might have touched on this earlier, but I don't really consider myself a strong interviewer. And so that was kind of always a point for me where I felt like I had to focus on. And so when it came to, later round interviews and just in general, I was really adamant about practicing my questions. So, every day, I mean, I had some note cards with, just sort of maybe it's like 10 of the most, common questions. I mean, tell me about yourself, why sales, why your company, etc. And yeah, I would kind of just like run through those every day and, record myself, try to get it under the, minute 30. And yeah, just really practice those and also practice the STAR method. That was something I also had kind of neglected, but once I got into it, it made a lot of sense and it kind of eased the tension that I had on myself when it came to sort of like getting hit with a question on the fly. And yeah, and now like looking back, I think also realizing that, you can kind of relax. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you stumble somewhere or you just don't know something. I think I kind of thought I had to be perfect. And the reality is it's an entry level role. they might throw you like some curveballs here and there. They're just kind of, they don't expect the world from you. So yeah, looking back, I would tell myself to just sort of like, relax, do what you can. Yeah, it's fine.
Nice. I guess what do you feel like was the most challenging part about interviewing? Because I feel like I don't think anybody is really like naturally good at interviewing, right? Like I feel like everybody that kind of says that is kind of like, obviously some people I think are better at it than others, but there's so many different nuances to interviewing, right? Like, was there a specific one where it was particularly more challenging, or like what was it that was kind of like an obstacle for you? But maybe not an obstacle, because you did crush it. Like you ultimately ended up with 2 offers. So I don't want to like put a dampener on like how well you actually did. But yeah, I would love to just pick your brain there.
Yeah, I would say for me, I was always very scared of being thrown like a curveball or like some question I hadn't prepared for and then not knowing how to answer on the spot. I mean, that was like number one fear for me. But what really helped was, so I would say like the STAR method. Although I've been calling it the PAR method, like problem, action, result. It's just easier to think about, and yeah, just sort of like framing everything in that way. I know it's kind of a generic response, but just just being able to think through an answer in that way and then deliver is really helpful. And also, I would say, and I think this is kind of an exercise in that resume video you have, Eric, where you go through all your experiences and just kind of write down and like flesh it all out. That was like really great because it jogged my memory of all these things I forgot about and all these different stories. And so when they kind of came up, or the opportunity to speak about them came up, it all flowed pretty naturally. So that was a huge help for me. So yeah, and and again, just sort of like relaxing in the interviews. Like in the most recent one I had, it was very like casual. They threw me like a really big curveball. It was like they said, name 3 things that you make a top or would make a strong SDR. And so I named 3 things, right? And then they say, okay, tell me 3 more things about yourself that would make you a great SDR. And so I was like, I mean, that was like super hard. But I kind of worked through it with the interviewer. I mean, it was casual, and yeah, just keep it chill. That's what I would say.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, we've heard some interesting stories of everybody has their own little curveball in a way. So it's kind of funny to hear. Which I would say that one isn't even as bad as what we've heard. We've heard some really good ones. So, but I'm happy that you crushed. I mean, honestly, like thinking about, that's like 6 things that you got to kind of like pull out of a hat. So
I mean, I'd already kind of prepared like the 3 for myself, and then you need 3 more, and I was like, oh shit! Like,
you got to cycle back through them. Just say them in different words, I guess.
Yeah, essentially.
So. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, yeah, first of all, like, appreciate the time, Andre. This was super, super awesome. I guess like maybe as closing, just looking back at your journey now, like, or, if you were to give somebody advice out there who's maybe looking to make a similar transition as the one that you just made, or maybe somebody who is considering, joining Tech Sales Ascension or buying training for themselves, like any advice that you'd give them or anything that you want to leave them with?
Yeah. I would say to really just sort of like trust the process. I mean, kind of like assuming that, obviously that's generic advice, but it's really true on so many different in so many different cases. I mean, like, I got pretty discouraged at one point because the first couple of interviews I had were pretty bad. I mean, I just fell flat on my face, and obviously I just felt bad about it. But yeah, just sort of like keep going with it, with what you're doing. Keep following the steps. No need to kind of like change anything up. You're learning from experts, and so yeah, I would say just take that and keep pushing, and you're gonna end up where you end up. Yeah.
Nice. I love it. Well, Andre, appreciate the time, and congrats again. I mean, you obviously absolutely crushed it. I think you're very humble for how well that you did. So yeah, we appreciate it. Eric, I don't know if you have any famous last words, but this was really solid.
Yeah, this was great, man. I appreciate all the advice, and I think this is a great one for anyone that's like struggling to figure out where to even begin, packaging different experiences and all those different things. So yeah, congrats again.
Thank you.